It's a pleasure to be invited to speak to the Sustainable Business Council this evening. It's quite an honor, and I see a lot of familiar faces and some friends. And I guess to start off, I'd like to introduce Dave Max. He's right in the back there. He's been working with me on this side by side for about 3 years now, so he's definitely a force to be reckoned with as well. So. In the flyer, it was more oriented towards the bio-based economy, and that was back in August that we started when I talked to Susan about coming here. So some things have happened within the company since August, so I thought I'd share an update with you about how Sustainable Systems is participating in this emerging bio-based economy. So it's heavily slanted towards what Sustainable's doing, but it's pretty exciting for us, and this is kind of our first real presentation on recent developments. So this, by the way, is a picture of a safflower field in Sidney, Montana. It's at the Eastern Agricultural Research Center, and we'll learn a little bit more about safflower. And in the background there is Anheuser-Busch malt barley receiving facility. Lots of malt barley grown in that area as well. Let's see if this... Okay. So who are we? Sustainable Systems, we're a renewable energy and bio-based product development company. We've been in business since 2001. We have a philosophical foundation based on a triple bottom line, meaning we are profit-oriented, we're socially motivated, and environmentally motivated as well. We have strong industry experience and agricultural management experience through contracting with agricultural producers, operating plants and facilities, and then marketing the end products. And we've developed a solution-oriented customer relations program, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means as we get to our marketing section. So our roots are based in the lab. Benchtop experiments with biodiesel is where we started. We converted waste vegetable oil, some virgin oils that are grown in Missoula. We converted them on a small scale into methyl esters, developed some testing protocols to see that we could meet specification, got some development money from the Montana Department of Agriculture, and built a pilot scale processing facility. This was locally fabricated, and with that foundation we began to look at the agricultural community around the state. This is a picture of a canola field and the Kalispell Research Center of MSU. With this foundation, we moved into bulk brokering. We realized that it was more important for us to build the market, demonstrate a market, rather than try to produce on a small scale. So we began splitting rail cars with an outfit in Kalispell and an outfit out of Bozeman, and distributing and selling locally 100% biodiesel and to private customers. And then we have some blended pumps with Cenex Harvest States. The B20 pump was in operation for up until this past fall, and they moved it back to B5. And then we had the BioBus bus as one of our probably our premier project, and we see that going around town quite a bit. Demonstration projects that we've been involved in, of course, the University of Montana BioBus was our start. We did some brokering and introductory biodiesel fuel supply to Glacier Park, and we still work with them at times. Mountain Line Transportation, we did a B20 blend in one of their buses for 2 years, and then they just recently went on fleet-wide with B20. And then the Montana Department of Transportation, we supported and supplied fuel for a snowplow project where they had snowplows down the Bitterroot and then snowplows in Havre running on B20 to see about the cold weather characteristics. And this one spawned from some legislation that we worked on with Holly Razor in 2003. The session we were looking at getting a 2% mandate for the state. It was sort of new to the legislature, so they had a lot of questions. It evolved into a Montana Department of Transportation study, and then we went subsequently back in this most recent legislature and got 2 biodiesel bills passed to support industry expansion. And then the Missoula County School District, the Frenchtown school buses are on B20 right now as well. So those are some of our development and demonstration projects. And our goal is to provide a sustainable link from the rural agricultural community to the urban center through the processing and manufacturing of bio-based goods. This is a link that right now is in jeopardy, and we feel it's very important from a social standpoint to make sure that the urban community understands the importance of the rural community, and then that the rural community has an opportunity to sell goods and services to the urban community. So this link is really the foundation of what we believe in and what we're working towards as a company. Next slide. So this is our business model, and I guess at this point, well, first off, who rode their bike to get a free t-shirt? So this is our business model. We've got, it's, walking? Well, we got some other party favors. Okay, our business model is centered on, well, I guess 90% of our raw materials coming from the agricultural community. We are sourcing less than 10% from non-agricultural resources. This particular area is where we get our raw materials. Agricultural producers grow it through production contracts. We go out to the farm community. We say, hey, you grow an oil seed for us. We'll pay you, 12 cents a pound on delivery if it meets the specifications. And we're also working with regional suppliers of grease collection agencies. They're in this business. They have fleets of trucks that go around and collect grease and do different rendering operations to get raw material for a processing facility. From the processing facility, and this is primarily in Culbertson, right now we produce culinary oils, protein meal, bio-based lubricants, biofuels, and other specialty products. And then we take these products and we market them directly through branded outlets, through branded labels like our Montola Safflower and Montana Biodiesel, and then we sell wholesale. So this is the basis of our business, and so let's see what the next slide is.
What's an example of a specialty product?
You can take glycerin and make 1,3-propane diol, and that's a biodegradable antifreeze, otherwise known as propylene glycol. So that's one of the specialty products we're looking at. Another one is it's a carrier for a wood stain. So instead of, if you look at wood stain, the base materials like methyl, ethyl ketone, and other solvents, we can use a bio-based carrier and get the same effect. So agricultural producers, what we see is agricultural producers are the historical backbone of the U.S. economy. We're trying to promote a movement back towards a sustainable agricultural practices, and we'll talk a little bit about what those are in just a second. With oil seeds and this opportunity that we're developing, we have extensive rotational benefits. So we reduce the herbicides and pesticide use on farming operations and also minimize erosion. Another exciting thing is rural community stabilization. So if there's if the farming is viable, chances are the second and third generations are going to stay on the farm. The community is going to be stabilized, and we will have this balance of urban and rural culture, basically. Long-term production contracts with incentives. This is what we want to provide to producers. So what they can do is have assurance in that a market is going to be there for their oilseed. What that does is it allows them to plan. If they do have input costs, with long-term contracts, the input costs are minimized because they can plan long-term for their management practices on their farm. Overall, we're building a relationship-oriented program, optimizing the farm production and the processing plant economics for community and environmental enhancement. So I'll circulate some items. This is canola, one of the oil seeds that we're contracting. You can take a look at it. It's a small seed. It's of the brassica family. It's greater than 80% oil or 40% oil content. You get about 15 pounds per acre in a dry land operation, which is greater than 60% of what we expect to happen in and around Culbertson. And you get 3,500 pounds under irrigation. It's 32% protein content in the meal, and I don't know if I have the meal with me. And it has, yeah, here's some meal as well. That I'll just take the top off maybe. You can see the meal. The canola oil is used in culinary applications for consumption by people. Fuels, and also in lubricants. On the left is another picture of the field up in Kalispell at the research station, and here it is just prior to harvest, and you can see it pods out. It's like a bean, and all the seeds are filled out in that bean or in that pod. Montola safflower. I don't have a sample of safflower. This is a proprietary oil seed. It's a non-GMO, selectively bred oilseed variety. It gets about 1,000 pounds per acre in a dry land crop. 38% oil content. This is a high oleic oil. 28% protein. The plant is excellent and under heat. It loves the heat. It's very heat tolerant. It's got culinary, lubricant, and special products applications. And these are, if we back up just a second, this is a field in eastern Montana that one of our growers, we went out and just checked the field. And he had about 500 acres of safflower planted with us this year. So next slide. Camelina. I've got some camelina in here, I believe. Camelina is another oilseed variety. It's an Eastern European variety. That's being introduced into Montana. It's an interesting variety because it can be grown on marginal cropland. Yields about 1,200 pounds per acre. For the grower, there's much lower input costs, so the margin, the spread for the producer is much better. They make more money off of it. It's got a decent oil content, high protein, and the oil is rich in omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. These are essential fatty acids that are showing, with the residual oil in the protein meal, we're seeing interest in the meal market for primarily fish food. We are going to use this for fuel because of the omega-3 and 6 fatty acid profile. There's some culinary applications we're going to investigate, and the protein meal is a premium in the food, animal feed market. On the left side is some immature plants, and then here it's ripened and ready for harvest. And this pods out in a little pod, and I don't know if you can, resolution's not real good, but these are all little pods, and the seed pod's filled out, and you come through and combine it. Next slide. Sunflower, everybody recognizes sunflower. It's also grown in and around Culbertson, 1,500 pounds per acre on dry land. High oil content, 42%, 30% protein, viable feed as well. Culinary applications and lubricants. So those are our oil seeds that the growers will grow. Sustainable practices. Sustainability is a practice. It's not cut and dry, either non-sustainable or not. It's a practice. It's kind of like medicine. You're constantly building and evolving and learning as we go. And so on the agricultural side, we feel we are sustainable and our practices are improving the environmental conditions of farming due to increased crop rotation, reduced herbicides and pesticides, no-till farming and reduced erosions. A little bit more recapping what we said before, the socially sustainable because of the now farming is becoming a more viable occupation. So there's rural community sustainability. Economically sustainable, our plant in eastern Montana is looking at greater than $30 million a year in farm gate revenue. So that's checks that we will write to the farmers in the community on an annual basis. This generates on-farm jobs, equipment purchases, parts purchases in the local communities. The diners are full. The movie theaters are full. Things are happening economically. So, next slide. So the diversified farm cropping system is what we like to promote. And traditionally, you see a lot of wheat and barley. This plot would be cut in half, and on 1,000 acres, you'd have wheat and barley, back and forth. What that creates is a lot of weed, disease, and pest issues. With this program, which people are starting to move towards, and with our expansion of the oilseed production in the region, it's becoming more viable. Most of your acreage is in an oilseed. You do still grow your barley. You have peas and lentils. You have hay field, pasture for some livestock. You have a fallow rotation, wheat, and then a legume to fix some nitrogen. Now the bottom chart here shows the costs, value, and the most interesting thing is the potential fuel produced. So off of that oilseed acreage, we can see about 10,000 gallons of fuel is produced, and then off the barley or even the wheat, we can produce ethanol. So the oilseed produces the biodiesel, and the ethanol, or the barley or wheat, can produce the ethanol. And what that means is we can have upwards of 11,000 gallons of liquid fuel coming off the farm. And the consumption is about 5 gallons per acre. That includes planting, harvesting, and delivery to the facility. So this farming operation uses about 3,600 gallons of fuel and produces about 7,300 gallons of fuel. So you have a net gain in energy off the farm. That adds about $5,500 to the producer's bottom line if he chooses to sell that fuel, market that fuel through, say, sustainable systems. So 1,100 acres with an intense rotation program. This doesn't involve any other cottage industry value-added processing that may be going on the farm. Walking with $85,000 net after taxes. This is a family type operation. After all their costs, netting out $85,000. So that's
You did say after taxes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's a stable farming operation that is a viable career. Oilseeds. We can see in the United States a lot of soybeans in the Midwest, and then the minor oilseed varieties like brassica. I got some mustard here as well. It's another variety. What we see in the western United States are sunflower, mustard, canola, safflower, and on this side we see a lot of soybeans. So that just gives you an idea of the production potential of our varieties. Next slide. So back to the business model. We talked about agricultural producers, what we grow and where is it coming from. Let's talk about the processing facility. Next slide. Processing flow, we've got oilseed production. I'll go through this pretty quickly. Oilseed production, we receive it, weigh it, take a sample, check the quality, put it in storage. Seeds then cleaned, dehulled, conditioned. We add a little heat to it, crack it. We crush it mechanically. Comes out of the oil comes out, and the quality's checked again. The oil goes to a crude oil storage tank. Depending on the oilseed variety, it goes to industrial applications such as biodiesel or lubricants, or it goes to culinary applications. Prior to biodiesel, lubricants, or packaging, it goes through another quality check in the lab. Then with biodiesel production, we have lubricant production. Branded packaging would be our culinary oils. And then before it leaves, we have another quality check. And then it's generally, most of our products are shipped by truck and rail. Next slide. So here is a picture of Alan. He's probing the truck. Truck comes, hits the scale. Alan probes it twice, takes a sample, and gets a preliminary understanding of the moisture content, the fatty acid profile. Is it actually seed that we contracted? Does he, is there other things down in here that shouldn't be? Next slide. Then what it does, it goes back to one of our warehouses. The truck, they open it up, grab another sample. It goes down into a well. There's an auger system. Goes up through the auger system. Next slide. And into seed storage and the vertical bins. These are all pictures of Montola and Culbertson. Next slide. After storage, it goes to a day bin. Here we have about 100,000 bushels of storage. This seed is being prepared for crushing. There's augers in the floor that move the seed around. This loaded from the top. This particular warehouse is less than halfway full. Next slide. It goes through a cleaning system, and then it comes into the expeller crush equipment. So the expellers are big pieces of equipment that squeeze the oil out of the seed. The meal goes one direction, the oil goes the other. The meal then goes into our solvent plant, where we take the remaining amount of oil out of the meal. The capacity with 3 expellers is 415 tons per day, which equates to about 15 million gallons per year. Next slide.
And that's not even talking about the meal, right?
That's not talking about the meal, right? So once we squeeze it and extract it, it goes into crude oil storage. We have 2.2 million gallons of crude oil storage on site. This is one of the larger tanks. Next slide. If you can recall the diagram from crude oil storage, it goes into our food grade refinery, where we neutralize the oil. Basically, there is some free fatty acids. We neutralize the free fatty acids. We clarify it with a clay, and we deodorize it and winterize it depending on the particular variety. We winterize sunflower more than any other oilseed because there's a high wax content. So that's about 60 ton per day. The winterizing equipment, here's additional pictures of the winterizing process. Removes the waxes from the oil, and mainly with sunflower. Branded bottling, we have a small bottling room. It's FDA approved, where we package some of our branded products. And bulk oil goes into refined oil storage. Each of these is about 25,000 gallons. There's basically a rail car turned on end. They're jacketed, and they have a steam coil in them as well. Next slide. And this is our rail car loadout facility. So we load safflower oil, sunflower oil, canola into rail cars. It's directly on the BNSF main line. It's a Class A main line, meaning it's not ever going to be shut down, not in the foreseeable future anyways. And and this is the bulk of the food grade refinery on that side. Next slide. And then to the west we have 7 acres where we are going to build out the biodiesel plant. You can see the rail line along the back here. Next slide. And another angle, and there's a feed mill over here as well that we're taking a real hard look at. There's opportunity there to make custom feeds for livestock, chickens, hogs, and fish. Exactly. And there's a beet pulp plant in Sydney. We can combine the beet pulp and the safflower meal and make a range block for cattle. That's a product we're looking at for winter forage. So, sustainable processing practices. The plant's been in operation since 1956, so there's a lot of old-style industry there. We're implementing programs to use the off-spec oil and the hulls. When we dehull the sunflower, we generate basically a biomass, and we can use that as a fuel in a multi-fuel boiler for our processed steam. So this is a project in progress. As far as shipment, everything's primarily shipped by rail car. So there's a lot of reduction in diesel emissions from diesel exhaust. Wind power, we're looking at the opportunity for wind projects and or tapping into the Judith Gap project to supply our electricity. Another very interesting concept is there's cooling water that comes off of the plant that can be used in, we're looking at building greenhouses for vegetable production. So this is something we're kind of doing some feasibility work on as well. So now I'd like to have somebody, we need some bioheat. Who's got sweaty armpits? David? No. So if somebody wants to, there's a couple samples here. We just need to kind of make sure it's tight. Just kind of warm that up with your hand. You can pass it around a little bit. Let's kind of get that oil a little bit warm. So we're going to talk about, now we're going to talk about our products. Okay. Next slide. Okay. Who rode the bus today? Hey, all right. Here's one of our products is Montola safflower. It's trademarked oil. We produce it and bottle it and package it in Culbertson. It's one of the lowest saturated fat content oils on the market today. It's a heart-healthy oil. This is a big concern these days is the saturated fat content of oils and the effects of both saturated fats and trans fats on people's health. It's non-trans fat, non-GMO, selectively bred. It's very heat stable. The stability comes from the oleic acid contents greater than 80%. It has a greater than 460 degree Fahrenheit smoke point. So what that means is that it's great for deep frying, sautéing, baking, salad dressings. It's a multi-use oil, and what we're promoting and selling this as is a way for kitchen managers to manage their costs. Instead of buying 3 different oils, they can buy one oil for all their deep frying, sautéing, baking, and salad dressing needs. It's a neutral flavor. There's no off taste associated with it. I don't know if you've had canola recently, but you know it doesn't have that off flavor to it, and it's produced in Montana by Montana farmers. It's currently used at the University of Montana and other institutions and restaurants locally and across the state. And it's, like I said, available locally at the Good Food Store. We're marketing it in the quart bottle that we saw, gallon, and we're rolling out a 35-pound container. If you've ever worked in a restaurant or been out behind a restaurant and you see those handles, that's what we're moving towards. In the marketplace today, there's a movement away from hydrogenated fats. So you take soybean oil, you add hydrogen to it, and you make the oil stable. It creates a trans fat that are bad fats. This is a naturally stable oil, no chemical modification necessary. The market potential for this oil is extremely huge, and we're really excited about this product for a number of reasons. So, Safe Power is a hydraulic fluid that we've developed with a grant through the Montana Department of Commerce. It is a biodegradable and non-toxic hydraulic fluid. You can use it in backhoes, tractors, a number of different applications. It's oxidatively stable. The same reason it's based on safflower oil. The same reason that safflower oil makes a good fryer oil is the same reason it makes a good hydraulic fluid, because it can withstand that heat. Long life, doesn't build up sludge over time. It's got a very high flash point, so it's safe to use and handle. Unfortunately, the Department of Defense is very interested in this product, because you wouldn't think, but the most flammable fluid on a M1 Abrams tank is the hydraulic fluid, the most dangerous fluid, because when one of those vehicles gets hit, the hydraulic lines are under pressure. You have flammable liquid spraying throughout the cabin or the cockpit. So I say unfortunately, because we all understand what's going on. The Department of Defense is highly interested in this product, and we're actually doing tests in Warren, Michigan right now with it. So it's got a reasonably low operating temperature, so it's for, you wouldn't want to put it in an airplane that's flying at high altitude. Another exciting thing is it's greater than 70% bio-based content. A lot of other products on the market just barely tip the scale at 50%. We're greater than 70% safflower oil. Raw material grown by farmers, again, currently testing. Department of Defense and Department of Commerce supported this development. Okay, products. I got another product that we're working on. We call it Must Move. It's a bio-based penetrating fluid. So if it's WD-40, everybody spray WD-40. That's basically spraying diesel fuel. So when you look at the components of WD-40, you'll also see on the WD-40 label may contain compounds that are carcinogenic in California or something like that. It says WD-40, you're basically spraying diesel fuel around. So we've developed a product, a vegetable oil-based product that is equivalent to WD-40. So this is one of our first test samples. It's still in the development phases, and we hope to roll this out. You can go pick it up at Ace Hardware, Walmart, Home Depot, something along those lines. No petroleum components, bicycle chains, tools, lawnmowers, no VOCs or carcinogens. Oh yeah, it's great. It's fantastic. You'll love it. You absolutely love it. Other products that we will be producing is a technical grade glycerin. Here is a representative sample of what it looks like. There's over 1,500 commercial uses for glycerin. It's non-toxic, biodegradable product. We are interested in taking this to propylene glycol, which is a non-toxic antifreeze. It's also a plasticizer. We've got a wood stain over at Home Resource. Basically, the carrier for it is non-toxic. That's a biodegradable base oil. From a triglyceride, you can make solvents. We're looking at crankcase motor oils, lubricants, other carriers and degreasers, and then protein meal. And this is some camelina oil. We saw the seed being grown. There's camelina oil, and the protein meal is a big component of the products coming out of the plant as well. Next slide. All right, the big item, Montana biodiesel. Let's make a little. Where's that hot oil? We have, all right, great. It's, what's exciting about, you can take basically room temperature or body temperature oil and add some alcohol and some catalyst, and you'll hopefully here everything will go correctly, and we'll see the fat split. We'll have a glycerin at the bottom, and the ester, which is a methyl ester because we're using methanol. If we used ethanol, we'd make an ethyl ester. So who's a brave soul with glasses, hopefully, that is interested in coming up and mixing these two things together? And if nobody really wants to, I can.
You have glasses.
You want me to do? Okay. So basically, yeah, sure. I'll stand over here in the light, and there's nothing real fancy, but I'll actually hold that, and I'll hold this. Put this in my pocket. Put this in my pocket. And basically, what we're going to do now, imagine this on a large scale. We've got. Okay, loosen that up. We've got a catalyst here. We've got potassium hydroxide, KOH. And what this does is it makes we add it to the alcohol, makes the alcohol real excited. And if I could get a volunteer just to kind of shake that until all that catalyst is dissolved. So this is going on in one big tank, right? Spinning around on a large scale. Okay. Yeah. We'll do 2 batches. So more catalyst, add your catalyst to the alcohol, about 7 grams per liter of oil. You can see this one's starting to bubble a little bit. Is that getting warm? Is it feeling warm?
Yeah.
So this is it's an exothermic reaction. We're making an excited radical. During that process, it releases heat. Shake that a little bit. Make sure the top's on. Shake it away from your eyeball. Okay, so what we've got, okay, the catalyst is just about dissolved. Let's keep it going. You might pass it to your neighbor. It's a community effort here. You can feel it getting warmer. So once we get a little closer, we'll...
You're going to use both of these?
Yeah. So what we'll do is, as soon as that one gets dissolved, let me see that real quick. We're going to get that. Okay, you can feel it getting warmer. This definitely came in here at about 40, 35. Okay, is that one dissolved? Okay, so we got a very excited alcohol. We're going to add it to, this is, actually let me put that back on. Just hold that for me. We're going to add it to a vegetable oil. Today we're using mustard oil. We'll just add it slowly. And you can, what we'll do is shake it up. You can see it starting to react already. It's kind of a milky color. And if you listen, you can hear it get more viscous or less viscous as the fat splits. You may be able to tell or not. If it's spinning on a bench top, you can really hear the change. Okay, that's on there pretty tight. Let's shake that up for about 10 minutes. Just keep shaking it rapidly. Okay, let's see. We got that other. Okay, let's add. Go ahead and add these two. Okay, nice and warm. What's very exciting about this is that, unlike other chemical processes, there's no unnecessary heat or pressure to make two very useful products. So you're basically making a fuel and a glycerin alcohol at room temperature. So we'll keep shaking these up. Let's shake those while we keep talking. And so Montana Biodiesel, we may have seen bumper stickers around town. I didn't bring any stickers tonight. Reduced emissions because it has alcohol. It has some oxygen in the molecule. I don't have a picture of the molecule. My apologies, but there's some oxygen in the molecule, so you get more complete combustion, which reduces the emissions. We've had truckers tell us that they've had fuel economy enhancement from up to a 0.5% to 1%. Increased lubricity from vegetable oil in general is has excellent lubrication characteristics. So the methyl ester, which is the biodiesel, is a good lubricant agent as well. The other exciting thing is that no engine modifications are required. So you can put it in any diesel engine that's on the road today. And the other thing that's exciting is there's no changes to the existing fuel infrastructure. We don't have to go and retool every fuel pump across the country or fuel distribution, plumbing, valves. All of that infrastructure can stay in place. Domestically produced, grown in the USA by our farmers. What could be better?
Paul, can anyone with a diesel vehicle go and fuel up there?
Yeah, there's a 5% pump at Cenex, and then we have 100% available out of our shop.
Why did Cenex go from B20 to B5?
Their accepted blend is 5%. So OEMs will warrant. OEMs don't warrant fuel anyways, but the accepted blend within the equipment manufacturers is 5%. And there's efforts to increase that. Volkswagen extends the warranty when you use B100 in Volkswagens in Europe. But in the United States, it's approved at 5%. So,
So it'll run on 100%.
yep,
So if this is just a blend, we're just
yep,
dipping our toes in.
exactly. It's a progression, comfort.
We can use 100%.
Oh, you can use it
What's the problem?
tomorrow. No? So here's, we see the oil seed down at the bottom. Here's all of the different products that we can produce from that oil seed. This is, just a sample of them. And as we go up this tree, they increase in value. So protein meals and biofuels are the low end of the value spectrum, but high volume. So we get up higher, we have lower volumes, but much more value. So we're all business people here, so a major component of making sure that we can continue our work is that we make money. So we're really looking at these higher value products.
On biodiesel, do they still blend it for winter?
Yeah, yep.
But will 100%
We don't really,
below 17 degrees?
yeah, we're not big advocates of using biodiesel 100% in the wintertime, and what we recommend is that you move back into 50-20% blends, and we've got our B20 down to negative 15 degrees with Cenex. So it is viable in the wintertime for sure, in a blend, B20.
What happens to the 100% in the winter?
It's just blended down.
No.
Oh, gels. Oh, gelling. Yep, gels. Yep, diesel gel too. So, just, we're not working directly with any OEM. There's the National Biodiesel Board is an organization that advocates for the entire industry, and they're taking the lead on the specific OEM approvals. So you can hear the viscosity. It's much looser now. We'll let these settle now. Give this one a. So we'll just, I don't know, we set these right here. Basically what we'll see is the glycerin fall out the bottom. Once it's separated, it stays separated. And so what we have is a crude glycerin on the bottom there, and then a methyl ester, which is that's about 95% pure. One thing it's really easy to make at home in your kitchen or in your garage. It's really easy to make 95% pure biodiesel, but it's that last 5% that really gets you in trouble. So just be aware of that, and we can pass that around as well. So product practices, we're working on renewable agricultural-based raw materials, no generation of hazardous materials during manufacture. Non-persistent, the products are non-persistent if spilled during the use of them or their transport, so they're biodegradable. They're also non-toxic and non-carcinogenic. So this is our sustainability practice on our product side. Now let's talk about the markets and our business model. Next slide. Branded marketing is a big deal for us. You can go and recognize on the grocery store, people buy for brands. So we're really focused on building out the branded products, and the lead one is the safflower oil. And I'm trying to think of another sustainable. I'll have to come back to that. Packaging and labeling. Who walked here tonight? I have to go up front here. There you go. So you can get that at the good food store. So there's plenty down there. Packaging and labeling at the plant is a big deal. Value added. So we achieve the most value in the product before it leaves the plant. Sell everything, freight on board, Culbertson. Brokering and distribution relationships are pretty important for us. We're working with Intermountain Food Brokering in Billings. They have a regional and a national network that we are trying to tap into. Distribution relationships with Cisco Foods, Food Service of America, these other types of opportunities. Shelf space is important. When you go into a retail outlet, you have to pay slotting fees depending on who you know. The retail market is kind of fickle. There's a lot of competition. So this is a big focus of our marketing program. And then on the fuel side, we want to build more brand recognition at the pump to have a preference development. So people, they'll prefer our product over a competitor's because of our story behind it, what we're trying to do on a multi-level. That's our branded marketing approach and kind of brief overview. The next, bulk culinary applications. If you have children and they eat formula, chances are our safflower oil has been in their formula. Columbus Foods is out of Chicago. They do various things. Spectrum Naturals, if you've ever seen Spectrum at the shelf and you see high oleic or heat stable safflower, that's our safflower oil under their brand. If you have ever had kettle chips and you look on the back and it says sunflower or safflower oil, that's our safflower oil. Essential ingredients, Fuji Foods, Ventura Foods, Hanes. If you ever seen Hanes makes a cracker, it says high oleic safflower oil. That's made in Montana. These are some of our bulk customers. They mostly buy rail car quantities from us. Next slide. Bulk fuel sales. We're moving in to direct distributor relationships. So we process the fuel, distribute it, or ship it directly to the distributor. We're also doing developing direct to refinery relationships. Cenex has a big refinery in Laurel, and look at the smile on that guy's face. I mean, he just absolutely loves it. The Cenex guys drive, put it in their truck. They love the stuff. They love working with it. And we're really promoting B2, 2%, 5%, 20, and 99 or 100% blends. And the reason why it's 99 is you get a tax credit. Basically, you get $1 back on that deal. So that's what's bringing the.
What's the reason for even having B2 if you have B5?
B2 is the 2% lubricity. At B2, it adds 60% more lubricity than what it had previously before the biodiesel was added. So, and it's also, that provides the lubricity that is lost when you remove sulfur from it for ultra-low sulfur diesel. So that's where B2 comes in. Also, Minnesota has a B2 mandate, but like you're correct in that the industry is moving towards 5%. And then there's hundreds of B20 pumps around the country. So the trend is higher blends, the higher ratio of bio in the fuel. Sold mostly by truck and rail, primarily rail. FOB Culbertson, and working on take or pay contracts from large private fleets in the Pacific Northwest, which is a pretty exciting work we're negotiating right now. Some of our current customers: University of Montana, the BioBus, Cenex, Department of Transportation, USDA, County Public Schools, and the Forest Service. Next slide. And we believe we have a sustainable location, and this is just number one. We see from here over and about from here up as our territory. So our initial location, this area is where we contract with oilseed producers, and it's down in here as well. And we hitting direct markets along the I-5 corridor and municipalities and communities in between. This is the largest consumption of biodiesel in the country, is from San Francisco to Seattle. We've got the largest untapped agricultural production area for oilseed crops in the country. There's a lot of ground out here that is underutilized. Next slide. And here's our echo, is what we've decided to call it, I guess. And we're still kind of feeling it out. So, but basically, education of administration. So you have a school district. There's administration involved. They're trying to make a decision. Should we go to biodiesel? We'll come in and help educate the administration, staff, and other stakeholders. We'll help the end user communicate with their current distributors so that there's a link between our product and the end user, and the distributor is comfortable and understands what he needs to do or she needs to do to make it happen. We'll help through this process and provide guidance as you're transitioning into biodiesel as a fleet, and then we'll provide ongoing support and services. And right now there's a lot of people out there calling, how do we do this? We want to do this. And there's just a lot of echoes coming back. Nobody's really providing that bridge. So this is kind of a sales pitch, but basically we'll hear you calling. So now the markets in general are pretty exciting, and that there is a 30 billion pound per year vegetable oil market. So that's $9 billion a year potential. 62 billion gallon a year diesel fuel market. So we're playing in a $124 billion a year business. 800 million gallon per year hydraulic fluid market, and a $20 billion per year specialty chemical market. So all of the above, we have the opportunity for all of these markets to be 20% or greater than as bio-based products. So there's essentially a $31 billion market opportunity that's growing and expanding. Next slide. So some of our projections for specific to Culbertson, 51% of our revenues will come from the culinary oil business, 27% will come from the fuel business, and other products such as the meals and glycerin will generate 22% of our revenues. So we're looking at, by 2009 in Culbertson, approaching $45 million in revenue with an EBITDA of $10,000 or $10 million. So highly profitable and also highly sustainable. Next slide. The management team, we all work together to make this happen. David Max, you've met. John Sheldon, he's an organic farmer from the Flathead. He's our VP of Agriculture. David Bjornson's our General Counsel and Secretary. He helps keep all of our corporate minutes and documents in line. George Jasper's our Superintendent, 32 years. He's got two hands like a vice, you know, one of those guys. We have operators and foremen out there, totaling 12. Scott Chaikin is a CFO. Jennifer Kessner, she's our accountant and controller. She makes sure that all the bills are paid, and that lets us know when we need more money. And Neil Turnbull's our general manager. He's been in agribusiness for 25 years, and he was that gray-haired guy that you saw in some of those pictures earlier. So we had some local angels invest in the company. We're highly appreciative of their contribution. They're extremely excited about what's going on. We've gotten some seed funding from the Montana Department of Agriculture, and the Growth Through Ag program is a very exciting program where you can apply for grants if you have a product that you want to move into the marketplace. They will help you develop that through a grant program. This is where we got most of our seed money from, as well as the Department of Commerce. Great Northern Development Corporation is out of Wolf Point. They helped us package our financing through the state. Montana Business Capital Corporation, Tom Swenson and Brett George, they're right downtown here. They're invaluable resource locally for debt financing for business development. Schweitzer and his administration has been very refreshing, I should say the least. The University of Montana is where we got a lot of our roots started, and if you ever see Nancy McKitty around, just let her know. She's probably, you know, one of the reasons that we're here, because she gave us the opportunity to do the BioBus. And MSU, we'll give a shout out to the Bobcats, but they've, on the ag side, they've helped a lot as well. And next slide. So ask for it by name when you're out there. We're coming forward in a big way. And next slide. And we look forward to serving you. So that's our story.
Back in the back, we'll hit the lights. We'll let Paul answer some questions. Thank you. You're good.
Paul, where is it available 100% direct?
You can call us and we'll make an appointment, and you can buy it right here in Missoula. But again, I advise if not to move that direction this winter.
Right. Yeah.
What's the price right now?
It's $3.40 a gallon for 100%.
Yeah, what sort of, try to figure out how to word this, because I spent a fair amount of time in eastern Montana this year, and there's a lot of potential out there. And I'm just wondering what sort of system you have in place to start networking with the farmers and communities to bring back some of those lands that have been basically, you know, producing at a loss or not producing at all. And I'm just kind of curious as to what kind of system you have in place or what your plans are for getting some of those communities out there that have just barely hanging on to be regenerated by this kind of activity.
What we've got is an incentive-based contract program, and it's basically we go out and we provide a good contract price for the seed, and then we provide an opportunity for the producer to then purchase biodiesel at a percentage over wholesale to help manage their energy costs. And the producers that we are working with are historically the Culbertson plant has contracted with over 400 producers. So most of those guys are still out there in some form or fashion. So as we expand our program, we'll tap into that resource. There's a couple other grower cooperatives that are interested in growing the oilseed. And basically what you do is you go out and advertise. And you have basically a town hall meeting. You serve coffee and donuts, and the growers come in and you lay out your terms and your program to them. And then that's just something we're actively doing late November and December. While farming is down, people are more available time-wise. So it's a existing grower base, advertising and having meetings, trade publications, and then just press in general. Biodiesel has gotten a lot of press, so it's on the producer's mind, and they're anxious to get back into it. So, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I'll follow up with you some
Okay.
more detailed questions in terms of communities specifically, and what sort of network you have in place for that.
Okay.
Where's the hydraulic oil available?
It's not available yet.
Not available.
Nope. We've got some more testing to do, and then we've got to package it up, and hopefully 12 to 18 months. Question?
Who's your competition?
We're seeing some competition from the big three: Cargill, ADM, and Bunge. Cargill's building a plant in Iowa. ADM announced a plant in Velva, North Dakota, which is about 250 miles away from us. In the Pacific Northwest, there is Seattle Biodiesel is a startup, and their processing. Unfortunately, their processing capabilities are not much more sophisticated than what we did tonight. But but they're good guys. They're just we know them pretty well. They just have some learning to do. The Midwest is big as far as production, soybean cooperatives. In the Pacific Northwest, our area, we're really well positioned because from central North Dakota all the way to the coast is really wide open, and it's all a lot of it is raw material. Can you source the raw material? Yes, because we have the grower base. And then can you get it to market competitively? Yes, because we're closer to the market than the guys in the Midwest. So those are the two things going for us with respect to competition.
The reason the soybean cooperatives are interested is because during the rotations, they can...
Yeah, the Midwest is soybean corn. Soybeans are grown for the protein meal. It's 45% protein and goes into hog and beef and poultry, commercial farming basically. And then the oil is a byproduct and has some marketability. It's all consumed, but it's at a lower value, so they're adding value to it by processing it into fuel. And this whole industry was driven by the United Soybean Board because they have a checkoff program. So every bushel of soybean that is delivered, 25 cents goes to the soybean board. So they generate, $100 million a year for this organization. And they in turn go and look at, well, what can we make from soybeans now? How can we, and then they support lobbying activities. So soybeans are the soy guys have really done a good job. So we're just capitalizing on it with a new oil seed.
Two questions. One, I've heard a lot about the conversion, like from
fryer fats and things like that as well. Is that incorporated into this, or are you strictly dealing with just?
On this particular plant, since we're located in rural America, it'll be primarily virgin oil based. We have an urban model where we will source waste vegetable oil. We have another concept, since we are doing those 35-pound fryer fats. We have a concept that we are potentially going to implement where we sell the oil and then collect the finished grease so that we add value to it twice in the chain. So,
How are you going to get your price more competitive? You said that the 3-something a gallon.
right.
That's not hard competitive.
Well, we tend to think of, and internally we've thought about this, and what is the true cost of biodiesel, or what is the true cost of that petroleum diesel in that pump? Is it really $2.75, $3 a gallon? So, that's kind of the first response. The second response is that energy's not getting any cheaper, and we see the potential for $3.50, $4 a gallon diesel fuel. At that point, we will be a cheaper product. So it's a matter of time. Right now, through government support, we are on parity with petroleum diesel in blended applications.
So right now, your pricing is?
It's about 5 cents higher on a B20.
And once the demand goes up, you can bring your price down.
Once demand goes up, there is a floor to it though, because you have to pay the farmer. That's what we try to get the end user to buy into is, hey, look, this is, you're supporting rural America, you're supporting a rural business, you're decreasing global stress, and you're getting a good product that burns well. So
I see it as a perfect group. Basically, you can sell to the farmer who could be using it as equipment.
Exactly.
And then you can buying this material and then selling. I mean, it's just a self-perpetuating thing.
Yep.
Paul, what's the minimum amount of acreage someone could have and grow a crop that, say, you guys would buy from?
Well, we're looking at setting up satellite crush facilities on the 50 to 100 ton per day scale, so that smaller producers in western Montana can participate as well. So 25, 30 acres, 50 acres is hopefully will become viable. And we think it's going to become a necessity. Historically, the hinterlands around communities were what supplied food and fuel to the municipality. We're so oriented on trucks today and mass movement. I mean, iceberg lettuce is being shipped from Southern California to Boston. Unsustainable food supply and energy supply. So we're big advocates of the hinterlands of Seattle, or the hinterlands of Great Falls and Missoula being eastern Montana, the hinterlands of Seattle being eastern Washington. So, and then conservation is big too. You got to get 80, 90 mile per gallon vehicles out there. Smaller trucks, things like that. So.
Is your Culbertson plant expandable, and are you going to be building other similar plants? You mentioned the crushing plants, but I guess that's just a way to get the basic oil out there and then have to transport to the processing plant, right? So you're going to be building any plants in western Montana, or
Well, we think
Billings or Laurel area?
There's about 400,000 acres of oilseed rotation potential around Culbertson, and that'll support a 30 million gallon per year fuel plant, and then enough left over for culinary oil markets as well. We have some activity and some relationships in the Red River Valley of eastern North Dakota, as well as the Palouse country of eastern Washington. So those are two other areas that we're excited about from a rural development standpoint.
Invasive species is one of our country's hugest problems. Have you looked into, if these species could produce oil? I realize that it's spread out, they're not exactly growing a crop.
We haven't looked too much at that, and it's definitely something that we should take a look at more. On the invasive species topic, though, we are paying pretty close attention to that camelina, because that, if it's not managed properly, that could present problems. But as far as other, like knapweed, no, we haven't looked at knapweed.
Are they native to Montana?
Not necessarily native, but have been adapted to grow.
Is your triple bottom line an impediment in any way to moving forward?
It's been challenging, it's, at our pilot plant down there, it's like, you pull a rag out and you wipe something down and you try to, use it until it's, getting you dirtier than it is getting you clean. And so things like that in the early stages are really challenging as a practice. It's the social aspect of it has been really rewarding. Having the opportunity to meet the grower, come into the plant, shake their hand. These guys, it's another world out there, and it's very, very exciting, the social dynamic, and then, so the environmental aspect of producing a quality product is rewarding as well. And I don't know if anybody's ever produced biodiesel and put it in their car, but you feel like a new, you're just so empowered. It's like, yes, it's really exciting on each of those levels. So in practice, it's been challenging, but at the end of the day, it's triple bottom line is very rewarding. Question?
So where's the argument coming from that it takes as much energy to produce it as its potential?
So some research was done at Cornell. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but basically he has taken, well, first he's sponsored by the American Petroleum Institute and the Petroleum Lobby. The second thing is he's an entomologist. The third thing is, these are some of the arguments you hear out there. The third thing is that for ethanol, he used data from the early 80s. And ethanol production in the early 80s was extremely net energy loss. The farming practices were very poor at that point from a production of corn. So at that time, and with that data, there was a net energy loss with ethanol. Optimization of the fermentation process and other processing steps in ethanol, as well as agricultural practices, have tipped it over the energy balance scale. So there's about a 30% energy gain from ethanol production. And then on biodiesel, we're looking at a 320% energy gain.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You gotta explain that. If you're transferring a substance through the energy cycle, there's always a loss of energy in terms of heat, light, and things like that. If you're talking pure energy, you have to explain.
With it, the bulk of the energy comes from solar.
Okay.
So throughout the process, if at the end of the day, in a gallon of biodiesel, you have more energy than what you've put in through it from planting, harvesting, fertilizing, processing, and distributing, you come out on top. So
So you're not counting the solar energy?
You're not counting.
So wouldn't you have even more if you just used the vegetable oil and didn't go further? If the vegetable oil was your fuel?
we've looked at that and contemplated straight vegetable oil use. It is viable, but what you miss out on is the opportunity of that glycerin. So, and to be quite honest with everyone, I would rather not see I'd rather have everybody bicycling or whatever, and using that vegetable oil for pharmaceuticals and other applications. Burning it, combusting it, is probably one of the poorest uses of it, the lowest value uses of it there is. But when you take that triglyceride, I don't know where that sample's at, but let's see if we've got separation. Yep, see, you can see some glycerin at the bottom. So if you just burn the triglyceride, you miss out on this glycerin right here. So economically, there's value here. Environmentally, there's value there as well. So
Because it's not in the air.
because it's not being combusted. But on 100%, this is carbon neutral. The biodiesel portion, is carbon neutral. So the carbon emissions on B100 you could say there's none if it's made with ethanol. So
How do you explain your record profits in the last quarter?
we've downsized and fired a bunch of people. No, we hope to move into that, but
Waiting for that problem.
exactly, yeah.
You didn't raise your prices when the oil companies did?
No, that's, man. Question.
Does the plant have to have an oil content, or you use any kind of like biomass?
It does have to have an oil content, and we're looking at ethanol, co-locating an ethanol facility there, and potentially to use wheat straw as a cellulose-based raw material for ethanol production, and then instead of using the methanol.
Some kind of crazy experiment.
Lavender, maybe?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
We could add lavender to biodiesel, and
Serious?
lavender oil. So.
Any other questions? Well, I'd like to say thank you very much.
Last time I was here with Riverwalk Estates, this was an issue as well, and I know a little bit more now than I did then. So in this situation, given that my understanding of Montana law is that they have to have cows, and from what Gordon said, they can use the road to drive cattle, these folks would be against their yard if they wanted to assure that there would not be chaos of cattle from the road.
So the landowner would be the target of the landowner.
Yeah, if they want.
So the protections go to the density